I'd say that it is one of the things that would be used in a variety of other methods that would be part of an attempt to engage in genocide on trans people. That's what I would say. But in and of itself, no. Not on its own. Speaking of anti-trans bills, there's an anti-trans bill in West Virginia that specifically tries to ban transgender exposure to minors. So we're going to go ahead and go over that bill, courtesy of Aaron Reed, who does a wonderful job, as always, making sure that we are up to date on any one of these bills that goes through Congress. But first, let's get into the fan art section. This one is from Worthless. You're not worthless. I put some effects in this picture because taking a picture lost the vibrancy. Gotcha, but we have a Mercerus. I don't know why there's an F here. I guess we'll pay respects afterwards. But I definitely like the picture. The next one we have here is from Taproot. I don't consider myself an artist, and as such, this is my first fan art ever. But if there was ever a reason to post bad fan art, it would be in celebration of the Coinsurus emote. Why do you have to remind me that that's going to become an emote on the actual channel? Get away from me right now. Anyways, as always, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you like fan art, post Discord. Stop coin, toss into black hole. I'm going to talk about the politics now. I'm going to get far, far away from one of the many ways y'all torture me. Okay? Okay. For those who don't know, Aaron Reed actually has a little blog here called Aaron in the Morning. And here, we will get breakdowns of any of these bills. So let's go ahead and take a look through. The anti-trans bill goes a step further than anti-drag bills and outright bans minors from being exposed to transgender people. Anti-drag bills have proliferated in 2023. States like Arizona, Montana, and several others have seen bills proposed to ban drag being seen by minors or drag in public. One state, Nebraska, would even say that people who are under 21 years old cannot see drag. Arizona's bill says that drag events can't happen before noon on Sunday. All of the bills include language on how they define drag that leaves people wondering if these laws will also target the transgender community. Well, the new bill being proposed in West Virginia goes a step further. It outright bans any transvestite or transgender exposure, performance, or display if minors are present. So, the bill in question, if you want to look it up, is SB 252. Introduced into the West Virginia legislature. So that way, if you guys want to read the original text of the bill, this is the number you would look up. That way you know that nothing is being mucked with. There have been increasing escalations in anti-drag bills recently. Nebraska's bill states that a performance is banned if the main aspect of the performance is a performer which exhibits a gender identity that is different from the performer's gender assigned at birth, using clothing, makeup, or other physical markers. Transgender people could easily be read into that law and thus banned from doing any sort of public performance. These bills make no distinction between a live recorded performance, leaving some to wonder if movies like Mrs. Doubtfire could be banned. Several Shakespearean plays utilize drag. What about transgender comedians, musicians, and plays in which transgender people are cast? Needless to say, things are scary and uncertain in the state in which drag laws are being proposed. 4 senators in West Virginia today just decided to clear up any uncertainty. Yes, they absolutely do include bans on transgender people being in front of minors in anti-drag bans. West Virginia SB 252 explicitly targets the trans community in a bill that defines any transvestite or transgender exposure to minors as obscene matter. This comes from line 4 of the bill, which we can find right about right here. For purposes of any prohibition, protection, or requirement under any articles and sections of the Code of West Virginia protecting children from exposure to indecent displays of a sexually explicit nature, such prohibited displays shall include, but are not limited to, any transvestite or any transgender exposure or performances or display to any minor. So it says here that sexually explicit nature is any sexually explicit conduct, which is a definitive sexual act between persons of the same or opposite sex, actual or stimulated, including genital, oral, genital, anal, genital, or anything else as well. Bestiality, sadism, etc., all bad. The purpose of this bill is to prohibit obscene materials in West Virginia schools. So let's go ahead and go here. An average person applying contemporary adult community standards would find taken as a whole appeals to the prurient interest, is intended to appeal to the prurient interest, or is pandered to a prurient interest. An average person applying community standards would find depicts or describes in a patently offensive way. A reasonable person would find taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, or political scientific value. And then, of course, it points out here. So there's one way to read this bill, which is the way that a lot of conservatives probably want you to read it, where they say, oh, well, this is just banning sexually explicit stuff from being shown to kids. There's another way of reading this bill, which is the way that Aaron is reading it, and the way that I probably would read it as well, which is that the fact that it says that prohibited sexual displays include any transgender exposure, that's the part that confuses me. So does this mean that, like, a teacher who just happens to be trans would immediately be arrested as per this bill? That's kind of how this reads to me. Maybe I'm incorrect, but I feel like that would be a fair reading of page 5 of this bill here. The bill modifies 61A-1 and directly includes transvestite or transgender exposure, performance, or display as obscene matter. Section 61-8A-2 then penalizes the penalties for exposing minors to obscene matter are included in this new bill. Any adult with knowledge of the character of the matter who knowingly or intentionally distributes, offers to distribute, or displays to a minor any obscene matter is guilty of a felony upon conviction thereof and shall be fined not more than $25,000 or confined in a state correctional facility for not more than 5 years. Or both. Ah, yes. Being trans near people who happen to be minors. 5 years and $25,000, please. Remember that being a felon in the United States revokes your right to vote. It can completely revoke your right to vote. So, I don't know, maybe taking a grouping of minorities in the United States and removing their right to vote and then forcing them to become slave labor because, oh, we didn't really ever get rid of slavery in the United States. We just changed it to where we can do slave labor in prisons. I feel like this is, I don't know. What's the dictionary definition of not good? Let me guess. Genocide. No, restricting votes is not genocide. Genocide is a specific word used in specific scenarios. If all trans people were being chemically castrated, that would be a genocide. Fennec, thank you. 1,000 Fennec, thank you for the follow. I'd say it's cruel. I'd say it's awful. I'd say that it is one of the things that would be used in a variety of other methods that would be part of an attempt to engage in genocide on trans people. That's what I would say. But in and of itself, no. Not on its own. But you and I both know this isn't happening on its own. But let's go ahead and continue here. What does this mean for transgender teachers, transgender parents? Earlier in the same bill, they banned obscene matter within 2,500 feet of any school. This would, in effect, treat all transgender people like sex offenders when it comes to schools. Are teachers going to be fired because they're given minors transgender exposure? Are plays with transgender people in them going to be canceled? Are parents walking their children to school going to be targeted? I'm a transgender parent myself. I sing and dance and monologue to my son on a regular basis. I am active in his school, and I have an amazing relationship with his teacher. I proudly wear a transgender flag pin when I desire to represent my community in a more formal way. Would laws like this see me as transgender exposure to minors? Will I be able to hike and travel with my son through West Virginia, a state I've loved to visit since, for its natural beauty? What does a bill like this say to trans and queer West Virginians? It's disconcerting to see weekend news of drag queen events being stormed by far-right militant organizations like the Proud Boys, and then to see these laws proliferate afterwards. Republicans sometimes try to distance themselves from these groups, but it's clear that there are major figures in the Republican Party who intend to steer the party and any states they control into an oppressive new era of anti-LGBTQ+ enforcement. The intimidation tactics being used in an extra-legal fashion are resulting in Republican politicians not condemning, but supporting these goals. Some might argue these bills have no chance of passing, or that they will be struck down as unconstitutional, but I want to emphasize that it isn't just a single Republican proposing it. Several bills like these have been proposed all over the country. While this is the most extreme version of these bills, 4 senators have sponsored it. And the names of the senators are right here. It feels like we are approaching new territory every day. We see anti-trans legislation. Criminal bans on gender-affirming care are being proposed in many states that would ban our care up to, and in some cases, the age of 26. Now we are seeing attempted bans on gender nonconformity and bans on simply being trans in public. Are we going to return to the days of 3-article rules, which resulted in people getting arrested for impersonating men and women in public? Stonewall was a fight in part as a result of these kinds of laws being imposed on the gay, trans, and drag communities. It's unthinkable to think that we could return to those days yet again, and I hope we never do. I want to reiterate and piggyback off of what Aaron is saying in this article. What you need to understand about things like Stonewall. Stonewall was a riot. Stonewall was violent. Why was Stonewall violent? Well, it was a response to violence being forced onto other communities. It was violence that was being enforced through state police onto gay people, onto trans people, onto people who could be considered any number of sexual minorities. Riots don't appear out of thin air. Riots don't come up out of nothing. Riots are a direct result of socioeconomic and political pressure being put on a group. Riots happen when the voices of people go unheard. And when that happens, you have to ask yourself the question, what is not being heard? Sometimes the message is largely unimportant. When the thing being unheard is, we want our president, Donald Trump, to be the president forever. Sometimes you get riots as a result of that. Other times, though, when you ask what is not being heard, you hear a group of people talking about their rights being stripped away, rights to marry who they want, rights to exist in a space as their authentic selves, rights to take care of their kids. When those are the rights that are being taken away, not some imaginary ones that people made up in a back room, but, legitimately your right to exist as happy. When those are the rights that are being taken away, those are the times we should be listening the most to the words of people who are feeling like they are unheard. Because when we don't, I guarantee you the end result, as history has shown, leaves us markedly bloody and bruised. And I don't think that's good for anyone. So, state legislature, could you maybe do yourselves a huge favor? Listen to your trans community. Listen to the vast majority of people who merely want to exist and be happy. And I'm not just saying that because I think it would be just a swell thing to do. I'm saying that out of concern for your personal safety, because history has not been kind to bigots. Ultra fine point. Thank you for redeeming your points for an OWO. And with that, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you haven't already. And as always, everybody, insert end of video tagline here.